Chapter 9, Super Secret, Noah Euclipus. I never thought I'd see anything in real life as amazing as the stuff on YouTube. This was logical. YouTube was the sum total of human experience, but since it was impossible to watch it all, viewers were naturally drawn to those videos that were the most exciting, entertaining, funny, or unusual. In other words, YouTube may have been life, but our experience of YouTube was the equivalent of life's greatest hits. And then Donovan Curtis jumped into that truck and blew everything else away. It won't ever be on YouTube, but it ran in my head on an endless loop. Pages views mounting, Donovan sprinting, catching up to the rolling truck, heaving himself in the window, and the tanker accelerating toward the house. Disaster, unavoidable. And then, at the last second, I was getting crazy just thinking about it. Donovan was famous for getting himself into trouble because he always acted without thinking. But here was the proof that thinking was overrated. If he had taken the time to think, the truck would have been out of reach, and Megan's house would have gone up in a fireball. I'd studied the great heroes of humanity, people like Muhammad Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But Donovan wasn't just someone I'd read about. He was my best friend, and I witnessed his act of heroism with my own eyes. I even participated a little when I fell in the pool at the end and got really bad crotch chafing on the long walk home. This was living history. But the more I thought about those heroes of the past, the more I realized they had an advantage that Donovan didn't. They were free to tell their stories to the world. Donovan couldn't admit that he was the person they called Super Kid because then he'd have to explain what he was doing near Hashtag's house. That was technically my fault. I was the reason he'd been on Sawton Street. But how could I regret that? If Donovan hadn't come intercept me, no one would have been there to protect the Mercurys. The frustration of it was killing me. Donovan deserved so much credit. And how much was he going to get? Zero. I hadn't even been able to stand up to Hashtag for him. Now it was too late for that. I promised Donovan I'd stay away. Just seeing him stressing over the whole situation broke my heart. He should have been having parades thrown in his honor and getting the key to the city. Instead, he was hiding like a criminal, as if he'd done something terrible. Every time someone talked about the Super Kid, his head would sink a little further into his shoulders, like a neutron star collapsing into a black hole. Donovan, we have to tell everyone, I urged. Whatever trouble you get, it won't matter when people find out what a hero you are. The things he threatened to do to me would have been scary if they hadn't been anatomically impossible. Actually, there's no way to pull someone's liver out of their ear canal, I said gently, but I got the point, which was never, 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 never. Over the PA, when Principal Verlander was done with his usual announcements, he introduced head cheerleader Megan Mercury, who had something special to say. Her voice was like I'd never heard it before, emotional. Not that she didn't get emotional when she was yelling at me, but this was a different kind of emotion. Some of you know that a terrible thing almost happened to my house and my family this weekend, she announced. But it didn't, thanks to a very brave person who might be listening right now. If you're out there, Super Kid, please come forward and let us thank you properly. While she was speaking, students stopped opening lockers and storing books in backpacks. They looked away from their phones and paid attention. You could have heard a pin drop in the hall. And when she was done, they all applauded, not wildly, but politely and with respect. By the time it was over, Donovan was bright red, and you could see his carotid artery pushing out of his neck. We had an assembly that morning. Our superintendent, Dr. Schultz, made another plea for the Super Kid to come forward. Now, I know you're a modest young man, and it might be embarrassing or uncomfortable to be made such a fuss of, but just as you were generous with your courage when you saved the house, we're asking you to be generous with yourself. Don't deprive your Hardcastle neighbors of a hero who can unite us all. Walking out of that assembly, I felt so bad for Donovan, I could have wept. I tried everything to console him. Don't worry, Donovan. All these people, Schultz, the police, Megan, they're just fishing. I've analyzed the situation from every angle, and there's no way anybody but the two of us could find out that you're, that guy. In the thinning crowd exiting the cafeteria, those two boys named Daniel sauntered over to us. "Hey, Donovan," called Daniel Nussbaum. "How was your weekend? Do anything special?" added Daniel Sanderson. Apple picking, video games, clipping your toenails, saving a house from going up in a fireball. I was so shocked that I almost blacked out, but Donovan wasn't even surprised. "Shut up, you guys. I'm in big trouble if this gets around." But, I stammered at both Daniels. "How could you know?" "Oh, please," D. Nussbaum told me. "I saw you over on Saunton Street Saturday morning, dressed like a circus clown, so I called Donovan to keep you away from hashtag. And, lo and behold, there's an almost catastrophe on the same street at exactly that time. Who do we know who's crazy enough to jump onto a runaway propane tanker?" "He wasn't being a hero," put in D. Sanderson. "He was just being Donovan." That made me mad. Donovan was so a hero. I dropped my voice, if he did the thing, which of course he didn't. Donovan held his head. I wish I'd never seen that propane truck. "Nice talk," D. Nussbaum clucked. "Sure, a whole family might get barbecued, but Donovan's not in a heroic mood today." "Obviously, I don't regret saving the house," Donovan interrupted, "but now nobody's going to rest until they found their super kid. Not Megan, not her family, not the cops, not Schultz. I'm going to swipe Brad's fatigues and deploy back to Afghanistan in his place. I'll have to spend the rest of my life hiding out in his tank. That's the only place they won't look for me. Oh, how do I get myself into these messes?" "Oh, pick me," D. Sanderson waved his hand. "Remember that time at the preschool book fair when you dumped all that super glue into the Clifford suit and Mrs. Biagio got stuck in it for 3 days? D. Nussbaum sighed. "Good times. Remember all the money we raised to pay for a new Clifford suit because they had to cut a hole in the old one so we could go to the bathroom?" "Oh, this is the same thing," D. Sanderson concluded. "You're older, but you aren't any smarter. And just like you were terrified when someone was going to notice your fingers were glued together, now you're afraid someone's going to find out you're the super kid." "Don't say that word," Donovan pleaded. "What word?" D. Nussbaum asked innocently. "Oh, you mean super kid? Don't worry. You definitely won't hear me saying super kid." And the two of them danced down the hall, chanting, "Super kid, super kid, super kid." The bell rang, sending us to our next classes. I watched Donovan trudge away, slumped under the weight of his worry. He seemed to trust the two Daniels, even though I found it hard to, since they were doing the polar opposite of what they'd just promised. Maybe that was because the three of them had been friends since preschool. Maybe I was missing something. No, that couldn't be it. I owed so much to Donovan. If it hadn't been for him, remedial classes would be a distant dream for a guy like me. I'd still be in the gifted program, getting straight A's and hating them. He was the person who first showed me YouTube and opened my eyes to a whole world that couldn't be predicted by mathematical equations or scientific formulas. Not even by me. I had to find a way to help him.